This video is dedicated to John Leslie Merrifield, celebrating a lifetime of community service. John's roots ran deep in Elsinore. John's parents were Leslie Merrifield and Elena May Renault. His grandfather, Charles Sumner Merrifield, had arrived in Elsinore in December 1885, and his grandmother, Ida Alice Wall, had arrived in March 1884 with her father, Peter Wall. So John was already a fourth-generation Elsinorean by the time he was born. John Leslie, born in 1926, was the eldest of three siblings. He was followed by Lila Alice and Lois Ann, born in 1928 and 1933, respectively. Here we see photos of them as children and adults. These photos capture John and Lila during their elementary school years, from 1934 to 1936. John had originally started school in 1932, but was too young, so he started again with Lila in 1933. In 1941, John and Lila graduated 8th grade. They are highlighted here in their graduating class photo. John was able to share the class history during the graduation ceremony. John received the American Legion and Daughters of the American Revolution Award, given to students who exemplify courage, honor, leadership, patriotism, scholarship, and service. John certainly lived these values his entire life. On January 18, 1943, at the age of 16, John Merrifield achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. He received the award with 3 other boys. He remained active in scouting for the remainder of his life. In the summer of 1944, John worked at the Tahoe Inn in Lake Tahoe. There was a program at Lake Tahoe to get high school classes finished for those who planned to join the military. He took English and public speaking. John enlisted in the Navy on his 18th birthday, December 17, 1944. He was assigned advanced training as a radio operator due to his Morse code knowledge from Boy Scouts. His rank was Seaman 2C. He was in boot camp in San Diego. He had expected that he would be able to get leave to attend his high school graduation, but when the time came, his leave was denied. No problem, he and a buddy found a way to get out at 5 p.m. the day of the graduation, May 26, 1945. The commencement was to begin at the high school at 8 p.m. They arrived at home in Elsinore at 7, but his family had already left for the graduation. He ran all the way to the high school. His name wasn't on the list of graduating seniors, since he had finished early the previous semester. No one had known he was coming, but they put out an extra chair when he arrived. He was the only one in uniform, and when his name was called to receive his diploma, everyone stood and cheered for some time. It was a proud moment. John's Navy years included a deployment to Guam from 1946 to 1948, following his graduation and enlistment. He was changed from being a radio operator to a mechanic, in part because of Morse code. He had learned it in scouting, but the Boy Scout method involved pictures and associations, and it was too slow for the requirements of the Navy. So he became a mechanic, in charge of keeping the generators working. After being discharged from the Navy on August 7, 1946, he remained on Guam for a time. He was a motor machinist's mate 3rd class at the time of his discharge and was employed by the United States Commercial Company at Com Marianas as a general mechanic, driving trucks and keeping generators running at a dairy farm. While there, since he was working the night shift, he had plenty of time to continue his involvement with scouting. Dr. Sadeloff, a lieutenant, found out about his experience with scouting and was glad of his help to establish troops on Guam. Because of that association, he was able to travel between the Navy base and the native side of the island pretty freely, working with Boy Scout troops and organizing camporees and other activities. At Thanksgiving 1947, he decided to come home for a vacation. He arrived home on Thanksgiving Day after having met up with Aunt Cleo, who lived in Paramount. His mother didn't know he was coming. She was outside plucking chickens, or maybe a turkey, when they drove up. He intended to go back to Guam after the vacation, but he stayed home, starting college in San Diego the following year. John met Mary Joanna Veal at a dance at San Diego State in 1949. They were actually double dating with another couple, and she was the date of the other man. They married September 3, 1950, in San Diego. He transferred from San Diego State to University of California, Santa Barbara, and switched his major from teaching to industrial engineering. John Jr. was born October 2, 1951, and Lori was born February 14, 1953. John received his bachelor's degree from UC Santa Barbara in 1953 and promptly returned home to Elsinore. John started working for Grant Washburn, fixing refrigerators, and then learned how to fix washers and all other appliances. He also worked part-time at the post office, right across the alley from the repair shop. One day, not too long after moving back, the principal of the grammar school came to see him. His name was Mr. Mackenzie, and he'd been the principal since John was in 2nd grade, so he knew him well. He asked, "John, do you want to come teach school for me?" The first answer was, "No, not particularly." But Mr. Mackenzie said, "Well, I've already talked to your mother about it, and she said yes." So John was a school teacher. For the first 2 years of teaching, John also drove a short bus route before and after school. He also continued working in the appliance repair shop and in the post office. He never missed a day of school teaching because of his other jobs, though. He taught woodshop and regular 7th grade basics. He also continued his commitment to scouting as a council commissioner. His dedication to scouting continued as he attended the Boy Scout Jamborees in 1953 at Irvine Ranch in Orange County and 1957 in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. John was able to attend with the boys. They took a train across country and made some stops along the way in Winslow, Arizona, Belen, New Mexico, Sweetwater, Texas. They spent the 4th of July in Houston, Texas, and then went on to New Orleans, Louisiana, Atlanta, Georgia, Richmond, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. The Jamboree was held July 12 through 18, 1957. After the Jamboree, they visited New York and Niagara Falls. He also served as Laguna District Commissioner of the Boy Scouts for several years and was involved in Cub Scouts as well. In addition to being a school teacher, working at the post office, repairing appliances, driving the school bus, John also volunteered for the fire department. Hank Boucher was the volunteer fire chief. John would be involved with the fire department from 1954 to 1975. He eventually served as the volunteer fire chief, demonstrating his continuous commitment to public safety in the community. The Lake Elsinore Library, originally opened in 1908 by Alpha Merrifield, saw a grand reopening with a new building in March of 1955. Aunt Alpha Merrifield Couch was honored for 32 years of library service. And as a 4th generation of one of the pioneer families and descendant of the founder of the library, John Jr. got to cut the ribbon. Paul Cecil was born July 5, 1955. In 1956, Herb and Emma Hales, stake missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, came to talk to John and Joanna. They had felt that the young couple would be interested in learning about the church. John was especially interested in the archaeology aspect as it related to the Book of Mormon. He had taught their children at school and had worked for Herb Hales at Lakeside Chevrolet as a teenager. He and Joanna were baptized on November 3, 1956. Jana Edith was born September 28, 1957. John was elected president of the Elsinore Valley Teachers Association in 1957, a position he held for a year. In March of 1958, John bought out Grant Washburn and now owned the shop. Formerly Grant's Appliances, it was now known as The Center. He leased a store at 106 North Main Street. He sold appliances and continued to operate the repair shop in the back alley. His brother-in-law, Harry Harriman, Lois's husband, ran the shop during the day while he was teaching, and then he'd work late into the evening, and sometimes even all night. He remembers taking Johnny with him sometimes, and he'd sleep on a blanket on the floor. Around 1958-1959, John began working with John Munoa with his ambulance service. Munoa ran an automotive and towing business and ambulance service out of Temecula, where he lived, and in 1959, he purchased a second ambulance to be stationed in Elsinore. John Merrifield would go on to be an ambulance driver/attendant, managing the phones, business, and billing, while Munoa took care of the vehicle upkeep and maintenance. John would eventually take over the Elsinore ambulance business in August of 1963. He owned and operated John's ambulance service until 1979. Of course, this was at the same time as he was running the store. John decided to expand his services. And in April 1959, he took over for David Birdman, who owned Elsinore Thrifty Furniture Company. The center was located at 106 North Main Street, but when taking over the furniture store, he moved to the new location of 106 South Main. John resigned from teaching at the end of the 1959 school year. He recalls that there was a dispute over teaching history-geography from a religious history book. There had also been a newspaper reporter who had come to investigate the paddle he kept on his woodshop wall. Whatever the reason or combination of reasons, he had decided not to return to teaching for the next year. That summer, mail home delivery began for about 4,800 residents of Elsinore after a house numbering project was completed. John had served as a substitute post office clerk for many years and had a delivery route assigned from Cheney Street to North Shore and the head of the lake areas. He continued to work in the repair shop at night, but quit working for the post office in 1960. He had been approached by Tom Yarborough in October of 1959 to be on the Planning Commission, later serving as chairman. Interestingly, John's grandfather, C.S. Merrifield, also served on the Planning Commission and was instrumental in getting the water and sewer lines placed in the town in the first place, nearly 50 years prior, along with streetlights and paved roads. Dave Birdman returned to town and resumed ownership and management of Thrifty Furniture. It was time for John to find a new location for his furniture and appliances business. He leased 3 locations at 104, 106, and 110 North Main in July, and was set to open for business August 1. Beth Louise was born on October 18, 1961. Beth's picture was used in his advertising in the La Laguna Review. The La Laguna Review was a pictorial magazine created in the 1960s by Roger Mayhall, who also served as its publisher. It aimed to create a lasting pictorial record of the history of Elsinore. John helped form a committee of the Downtown Merchants Association in 1962 to plan for the future of Elsinore's business. The 4 men on the committee were Ted Nelson, Firestone Store, Dick Connors, Elsinore Pharmacy, Jerry Gilbertson, Elsinore Valley Sun, and John Merrifield, John's Furniture and Appliances. John Merrifield received the honors as the man who had done the most for his community in the past year from the Jaycees in 1962. September of 1962, John partnered with Ralph Haskell and gave him space to sell records in a corner of John's Furniture and Appliances. He also subleased space to Al Tordoff for a jewelry and watch repair store. Al stated, "John wasn't too anxious to rent to me because he didn't want to lose window space for his own business. As it is now, all his appliances are in the rear and can't be seen from Main Street." John's comments on this subject were, "I was reluctant to give up the space, but after thinking it over, I feel that the loss of a little space is offset by having another business represented on Main Street and another sincere, hard-working businessman added to our ranks." John asked the city council, and they agreed, to donate $500 for new Christmas decorations in 1962. He also urged the many merchants, churches, service organizations, and other citizens to match that amount so that the city would have beautiful holiday decorations to use for many years to come. In 1962, John was serving as the Scout Commissioner and spoke briefly to the boys about some of the benefits that can come to them by participating in the Cub Scout program. He then talked to the parents, remarking that we don't just plant a tree and hope it grows. Instead, we care for it and help it grow. "This is what we must do for our boys," he stated. "We must help our young boys and girls and work with them, rather than just turn them loose to decide for themselves." John and Joanna's family was completed with 6 children: John Jr., Lori, Paul, Jana, Beth, and David, born April 9, 1963. In 1963, John was recognized as an outstanding citizen for his dedicated community service. 12 Valley citizens were honored during the Diamond Jubilee for their outstanding contributions to the betterment of the community. These citizens were chosen by votes made by their fellow citizens. The votes were collected in ballot boxes put in business houses throughout the Valley. John ran for city council in 1964 and 1966. He emphasized his experience, ability, and commitment to Elsinore's orderly growth. In 1964, he stated, "I believe that our business district in Elsinore must be the center for the growth area. I have worked toward this goal as a planning commissioner, and as your representative of the City Council, I will continue to work hard for this objective. I feel certain that Elsinore must go forward and not be held back by group favoritism and personal projects. In 1966, he outlined his qualifications. 1. Experience in government and planning since 1960. 2. Experience as chairman of City Planning Commission for several years. 3. Ability to read, write, and speak intelligently and effectively. 4. Willingness to study and learn regarding city government. 5. Capable because of education, background, and interest. 6. Conviction that my experience as a leader in many capacities all my life will help in the orderly growth and prosperity of Elsinore. 7. Willingness to stand up and be counted when called upon. 8. Understand the needs of the community because of lifetime residence and business experience. 9. Knowledge of many problems which have faced Elsinore. 10. Belief that my integrity and character are essential to good government. Since he was still on the City Planning Commission, he served on the Elsinore Joint School Boards Committee to choose a location for the new high school. Several sites were suggested, and John chaired a special committee that called themselves Citizens for a New High School in Lake Area. The group was in favor of a new school, but opposed to the site, which was located on the far end of Grand Avenue. His committee favored a site off Railroad Canyon, partially because the school district boundaries at the time extended from Alberhill to Temecula, and the Wildemar site would be more central for students. So thanks to his committee's efforts, the high school is where it is, and not the other end of the lake. John received a plaque from the Chamber of Commerce Committee based on his clean merchandising display. This was in June 1965, and he still made efforts to improve the community. He and a few others formed the City Improvement League in 1965, and he served on the Planning Committee, the Council Committee, and served as the chairman of the Board of Directors. Initially, they collected used but usable items for an auction to raise money. Later, he served on the Valley Beautiful Crusade Committee, cleaning up junk and abandoned lots. Montgomery Ward had its grand opening in November 1966. Located at 110 North Main, in the space previously occupied by Al Tordoff's Jewelry and Watch Repair, they relocated to 124 North Main. John had his furniture and appliances next door, at 106 North Main as well. John was very pleased with the community response to the new business, and at the grand opening, he had raffles and door prizes that brought many new customers in. His mother, Elena, had bought a taxi business with one car and herself as the driver in March of 1967. John and his family and employees answered the phone for her, since they already had to answer 24 hours a day for the ambulance service. In exchange, she did all the ambulance billing. Later, Elena decided to sell the taxi service to John as of January 1, 1970. He had asked the city to help subsidize the taxi service, but was denied. He sold the taxi service in August of 1972. By 1967, John had 3 ambulances to serve the Elsinore Valley. Ray and Ruth Townsend stationed one of the ambulances at their home off Grand Avenue on the other side of the lake, so that an ambulance could respond quickly to anywhere in town. He contracted with the gas company so that customers could pay their gas bills at his store. He continued to add various services to his business and subleasing space to various other merchants. In 1971, he added flooring services. There was nothing John couldn't find for you if you wanted to buy it. One time, someone needed curtain rods. He didn't have any at the store, but wait, he had some at home. He took them off the front window of the house and sold them, providing a great story for his wife to tell. In 1972, he ended the Montgomery Ward catalog sales and started a Western Auto franchise, which supplied the community with essential goods and services. In 1973, John lost his lease on the building. He moved the business down the street to 161 South Main. He had sold the taxi service, but still had Western Auto, John's ambulance service, and offered photocopy and print services. The ambulance business continued to grow with the town, and answering that phone gradually led into a full answering service. Now there was a switchboard that had to be manned 24 hours a day, so it couldn't be done from home at night any longer. Eventually, he and Joanna lived in the store so they could answer the phone lines all night long. Now at his third downtown business location, at 161 South Main, he contracted with Greyhound to run a bus terminal. Elsinore had been without Greyhound bus service for over 2 years, with Greyhound halting routes and the previous owners not being able to maintain costs of insurance and building rent. In 1975, he contracted with Western Union for telegram services. John was appointed fire chief when Hank Booncher retired in 1973. In 1974, the federal government granted the County of Riverside a $130,000 grant for a communication system between ambulances and hospitals. Progress was also made for the fire department communication system when a few local residents joined a national citizens band radio group called Alert. Each member was registered with the County Office of Disaster Preparedness. Under John's supervision as fire chief, they could be called upon for assistance 24 hours a day to provide manpower in case of an emergency. A gift to the city of Elsinore from the federal government was a $40,000 Ford fire truck. Merrifield said he drove the truck back from Marshalltown, Missouri, a distance of 1,801 miles where the truck was built. Unfortunately, the new fire truck was too long to fit in the existing garage, so a new shelter had to be purchased in January 1975. Later in the year, the city budget had a deficit, so it was suggested to dissolve the city fire department and depend on the county for fire protection services, since the city was already paying taxes to the county for fire protection. In October of 1975, John would continue as Fire and Disaster Preparedness Marshal. By 1979, John finally decided to sell the ambulance business to Goodhue, outbidding Sun City Ambulance to take over the Elsinore area. The landlord kept increasing the rent, and finally, by April 1983, the business was moved to his fourth downtown location, about 3 blocks to 161 North Main, to the old Alamo grocery store, now Stadium Pizza. Friends and acquaintances from church came to help, wheeling stuff down the street on dollies. It was during that move that David made his famous comment, "John will sell no junk before it's time." He continued to sell used appliances, ran the answering service, ran the Greyhound bus depot, rented oxygen and medical supplies, offered appliance repairs, Western Union and photocopy services, and more. John and Joanna continued to live there day and night and rented out the house on East Hill. The Merrifield family experienced the passing of David in 1984. He was just a few weeks short of his 21st birthday. He left behind his partner Pam and 2 children. On December 15, 1986, Joanna woke up with numbness in her right hand and foot and slightly slurred speech. In the hospital that first night, she had a full-blown stroke. She was permanently paralyzed on her right side, so she had to retrain her brain and body to do everything left-handed. Lori helped her learn to drive again, and her faith and perseverance kept her going for 10 more years. The local paper was having a Mother of the Year contest in 1987, so Lori wrote a beautiful tribute to Joanna, nominating her for the award. Joanna won the title that year. Even though Joanna was paralyzed on her right side, she managed to continue to work alongside John, supporting him in all he did. In December 1996, she experienced a 3rd stroke that took away her ability to speak and to swallow. She passed away on Friday, January 24, 1997, in a rehab facility in Corona. Eventually, the building at 161 North Main was lost too, because of outrageous rent increases, and the move was made around the corner to 108 West Held in February 1992. It was a much smaller building, only a small house. He moved his merchandise to Meadowbrook. In 1993, Brothers Towing approached him and asked if he'd answer for them from 5 p.m. until 8 a.m. They had been a regular answering service customer, and they needed a live person, not voicemail. For a while, he had to drive to Paris every night to the Brothers' dispatching office to answer phones. John had driven a limo occasionally for Bill Whitney in Sun City and Sun City Limousine. When Bill started having health problems, John took over. He never owned a real limo, but that business kept him with a nice car and at least paid for itself. He mostly drove people to and from the airports. He continued that until after Joanna died, even picking someone up a few hours after her death because they were depending on him. A few months later, he became reacquainted with Margaret Kuhn, who he had known from church, when she called him to take her to the airport for a trip to her homeland of Switzerland, and picked her up again 3 weeks later. He and Margaret were married December 27, 1997. Her husband, Oscar, had died in 1988. Joanna knew Margaret and had great respect for her. In semi-retirement, John was able to relax a little, to build things, do some yard work, and even travel to Switzerland in 2004 and Hawaii in 2006. John continued with the brothers' towing until July of 2008, when his back problems became too severe to sit up all night. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease many years earlier, and that too was a factor as he got more and more shaky. On July 4th, 2008, there was a special ceremony at the high school dedicating an Elsinore Veterans Memorial Wall. This was an Eagle Scout project by Cody Crippen. John was asked to speak, along with several others. He spoke of patriotism and how grateful he was for the freedoms we enjoy in this country, and how proud he was to be an American. John passed away November 1st, 2008. John was known for his entrepreneurial spirit, deep commitment to community service, and strong family values. His contributions to our community are not to be forgotten, and he always strived to make our community a better place. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on Earth. And now only those who loved them know what that little line is worth.
In honor of John, his father Leslie, and his grandfather, C.S. Merrifield, and their contributions and service to the community, a street was named in their honor. It is located in Albert Hill Ranch. They may be gone, but the Merrifield legacy will not be forgotten.